South Carolina just collected more than $4.1 billion in net income from households that moved in from other states in a single year. That's not growth, that's a transfer. And most of the people writing those checks are not headed to Charleston. They are not pulling into Hilton Head. They are sliding right past the billboards, turning off the highway, and disappearing into small towns that most South Carolinians have never spent a second thinking about. According to IRS migration data, South Carolina now gains a new tax filer from interstate migration every 9 minutes. The households arriving from New York and New Jersey are carrying average adjusted gross incomes of over $120,000, and those are the ones the IRS can track. The ones buying equestrian properties on cash and paying $2 million for shrimp village cottages do not exactly show up in the median numbers. This is 12 South Carolina towns where that money went first. I spent months tracking where it landed, and more importantly, why. Because the reason behind each one tells you something the real estate industry would rather you figure out after the prices have already doubled. A town that banned everything the vacation rental industry demanded and became the most expensive market in its county because of it. An inland horse community where a single boutique brokerage moved over $16 million worth of farms in 12 months. A city that got written off as a factory town and ended up on a national hotspots list because the money from California and the Pacific Northwest decided the BMW plant made more sense than another Bay Area startup. And a waterfront village of 600 people where the crab factory got demolished to build home lots, and the lots are now selling for $1,200 a square foot. If any of that sounds like something the South Carolina Tourism Board is not going to put on a billboard, hit subscribe now, because we are counting down 12 South Carolina towns where the quiet money arrived before anybody told you to look. Number 12 is Clover. When I first drove into Clover, I expected a sleepy little York County town. That time had passed by. What I found was a town that had been discovered twice, once by the families fleeing Charlotte's prices in the 2010s, and again in the last 3 years by a different kind of buyer altogether. Clover sits about 30 miles south of Charlotte in York County, with a population of around 7,500 in the town limits, but with suburbs spilling out for miles in every direction. The median household income here is just over $85,000, which sounds ordinary until you realize that number has been climbing steadily for 6 straight years as wealthier buyers move in and price up the surrounding area. Home prices in Clover are running around $450,000 at the median as of the middle of 2025, up roughly 14% from a year before, which is more than 8 times the statewide average appreciation rate. The wild card fact about Clover is that it has more people who work in computers and math than 95% of places in the United States. A small town on the South Carolina side of the state line became a bedroom community for Charlotte's tech workforce, and those workers did the math on property taxes and decided South Carolina made more sense. Primary residences in York County are taxed at an effective rate of around 0.5%. Cross back over to North Carolina and the math gets worse fast. The caveat is that Clover's identity is still forming. It has the income, but the downtown has not caught up yet. The restaurants and shops that follow money have not fully arrived. For now, it is a town where the buyers showed up before the infrastructure did. Number 11 is Summerville. Summerville used to be the place Charleston families moved when they were priced out. Then the families who got priced out of Summerville needed somewhere to go, and that cycle is still spinning. But something shifted in the last 2 years. The buyers arriving in Summerville are not the ones who could not afford Charleston anymore. A meaningful share of them are coming out of the New York Metro with cash and a spreadsheet. Known as the Flower Town in the Pines, Summerville sits about 24 miles northwest of downtown Charleston in Dorchester County. The median home price is running around $410,000 to $425,000 as of the middle of 2026, well below Charleston's median of more than $675,000, which still makes it the cheapest entry point into the Charleston orbit for buyers coming out of markets where $400,000 does not buy a parking garage. More than 2,900 homes sold in Summerville in a recent month alone, a volume that would tell you this is not a small pond market. The wild card fact is that Summerville has been called the fastest growing city in the entire Charleston metro, adding residents at a rate that has strained its school and road infrastructure for years. The town was once famous for its azalea gardens and the annual Flower Town Festival, which draws 150,000 people over a weekend. That small town character is what the buyers are coming for, and it is also the thing their arrival is changing fastest. The honest caveat is that the traffic on Highway 17A now rivals what used to make people leave Atlanta. If you are relocating for the pace of life, Summerville is a calculation worth doing carefully. Number 10 is Tega Cay. Tega Cay is a peninsula city that juts into Lake Wylie on the South Carolina side of the state line, and for a long time it was a pleasant secret known mostly to people who worked in Charlotte and wanted to live somewhere that felt like a neighborhood. In May 2025, it stopped being a secret. Home prices in Tega Cay surged 40.1% in a single year, the largest price jump of any city in South Carolina by a significant margin, according to Redfin data. The city has a population of around 14,000 and a median household income of $142,000. That figure is not a fluke. It reflects a decade of Charlotte professionals crossing the state line to buy in a community where South Carolina's owner-occupied property tax structure saves them real money. Act 388, a 2006 South Carolina law, removed the school operating portion of the property tax from owner-occupied primary residences. Combine that with a 4% assessment ratio on primary homes, compared to New Jersey's effective rate that runs 4 times higher, and for a family earning $250,000 and buying a $700,000 house, the savings over 10 years are not abstract. The wild card fact about Tega Cay is its name. The city sits on a peninsula that was designated as a planned community in the 1960s by a developer who may have invented the name from scratch, blending vague tropical-sounding syllables. Nobody is quite sure. The city has a marina, lakefront access, and the kind of close-in feel that is almost impossible to find this near Charlotte anymore. The caveat is that 40% appreciation in a single year is also a warning. Buyers arriving today are not the early money, they are the late money, and the traffic on Route 49 is starting to resemble the thing everybody left behind. Number 9 is Greenville. Greenville is the only city on this list that has been publicly celebrated as one of the 10 hottest housing markets in the country by the National Association of Realtors, and that recognition is already baked into the prices. But what most of the coverage missed is where the money is coming from and how concentrated it is. According to a Colliers International report, the buyers arriving in the Greenville-Spartanburg metro since 2019 are wealthier and from a wider geographic range than at any previous point in the city's history. The Pacific Northwest, California, New York, and Chicago are now in the mix in ways they simply were not before 2020. The region saw its net migration rate more than double from 2019 to 2022, jumping from about 4,500 net new arrivals per year to over 10,000. Home prices in the broader Greenville metro sit around $475,000 at the median, and the city's walkable downtown with its restaurants, trails, and Falls Park is what the real estate listings lead with, but what the finance people are quieter about. The wild card fact is that Greenville is home to the U.S. headquarters of BMW, Michelin, and Lockheed Martin, a manufacturing and tech anchor that no amount of coastal charm can replicate. When a California engineer relocates for a position at one of those companies, they are also bringing a California income into a South Carolina tax structure. That math does not stop compounding. The honest caveat is that Greenville's still affordable label is aging fast. The median price is already above the national average, and the pipeline of buyers from higher-cost states has not slowed. If you are learning things about South Carolina that you were not expecting, hit that subscribe button now. I cover the best and worst places to live in America every single week, and this list is only getting more interesting from here. Number 8 is Aiken. Horses walk down unpaved lanes in the middle of Aiken. This is not a metaphor. The city maintains designated horse trails through the residential streets, and the largest urban forest in the country, Hitchcock Woods at 2,100 acres, sits directly in the center of town. 100 years ago, the Vanderbilts and Whitneys wintered here in what locals still call the winter colony era. What is happening now is a rerun of that era, run with horse trailers with Palm Beach plates instead of private rail cars. Aiken sits in the western Midlands, about 16 miles east of Augusta, Georgia, with a population just over 30,000. The mechanism is straightforward: equestrian families selling Wellington, Florida. Operations where a serious setup costs multiple millions are buying triple the acreage in Aiken, where equestrian properties average under $1 million. A single boutique brokerage moved over $16 million in horse farms in 1 year. One winter colony estate on Whiskey Road recently changed hands for nearly $2 million. The median home in town, meanwhile, was running around $270,000 as of late 2025, a split that tells you everything about who is arriving and who is not. The wild card fact is that Aiken has 6 polo clubs and around 40 polo fields. The polo season here runs from October through May, and on Sunday afternoons during the season, the grounds off Whiskey Road attract buyers from South Florida, Virginia, and the United Kingdom who are comparing Aiken not to nearby Columbia but to Palm Beach. The honest caveat is that the two-tier economy Aiken is developing, horse farm buyers at the top, service and manufacturing workers at the bottom, is real, and the town's infrastructure and tax base have not figured out what to do with that gap yet. Number 7 is Landrum. A tiny brick main street sits at the base of the Blue Ridge in Landrum, surrounded by white fences and rolling pasture. In town, a normal house costs around $340,000. Ride 10 minutes outside the town limits and the math changes completely. Equestrian properties around Landrum now average $1.7 million, better than $90,000 an acre, 5 times the price of the town they surround. Landrum is in Spartanburg County, population about 3,000, and it sits directly below the Blue Ridge. The engine is the Tryon International Equestrian Center, just over the ridge in North Carolina, which hosted the 2018 World Equestrian Games. That event put these foothills on the map for an international buyer set that was previously looking at Virginia's Hunt Country or Wellington's Polo Circuit. What they found was comparable terrain at a fraction of the price inside a South Carolina property tax structure that is among the lowest effective rates in the country. Above the town itself, the gated cliffs at Glassy Community stacks mountain homes with 100-mile views on private roads. 2 entirely different markets now share one zip code, and the dynamic Landrum has landed on a working small town surrounded by luxury horse country is not sustainable at current price velocity. The wildcard fact is that Landrum looks like it has not changed in 50 years, and that is precisely what the money is paying for. The buyers are not coming for new construction. They are coming because the old growth trees, the fence lines, and the lack of strip malls are themselves the amenity. The people who board the horses can no longer afford the farms they work on. Number 6 is Fort Mill. Brick storefronts and church steeples sit just across the state line from the Charlotte skyline in Fort Mill, and that skyline is exactly the point. Charlotte is the second largest banking center in the United States, and the metro area takes in more than 150 new residents every single day. A significant share of the people with money behind those towers have decided to sleep in South Carolina. Fort Mill is in York County, population around 30,000 and growing aggressively. The average home sale runs around $525,000. But the detail that tells you what is really happening is one the county council does not lead with. Every new house built in the Fort Mill School District now pays an impact fee of nearly $30,000. That is not property tax. That is a one-time toll charged at the door, roughly 6 times the South Carolina state average, and among the highest school impact fees in the country. The schools are that full. 5,000 additional students are projected in the next 10 years. The wild card fact about Fort Mill is that it recently tried to slow its own growth down. The town passed a development moratorium in June 2025 and again in April 2026 while it tried to figure out how to build roads and schools fast enough to keep up with the money that keeps arriving. The moratoriums have not stopped the money. When a town starts charging $30,000 just for permission to build, the quiet migration is not quiet anymore. The honest caveat is that Fort Mill is already past the point of being an underpriced discovery. It is an expensive suburb of Charlotte that happens to be located in South Carolina. The tax advantage is real. The small town narrative is not. Number 5 is Travelers Rest. When I first drove up the Swamp Rabbit Trail into Travelers Rest, I almost missed what had happened to it. Cyclists were rolling past breweries and coffee shops with Paris Mountain standing over Main Street. A generation ago, this was the place where mill workers from Greenville stopped to rest their mules before the climb into the Blue Ridge. Today, the median home here sells for around $520,000, and that number jumped almost 23% in a single year, the biggest verified appreciation leap of any town on this list. Travelers Rest is in Greenville County, population about 10,000, sitting at the base of Paris Mountain about 15 minutes from downtown Greenville. What did the 23% in 1 year? A bike path. The Swamp Rabbit Trail, a 22-mile converted rail trail connecting Greenville to the town, turned a pass-through into the upstate's most wanted address. Market reports now credit the trail directly with pulling in retirees from the Northeast and remote professionals from Charlotte and Atlanta. New townhomes are going up with front doors that open right onto the trail. The wild card fact is that 15 minutes up the mountain, Gated Cliffs Communities put $2 million homes within a short drive of the taco shops on Main Street. The town where Greenville once rested its mules is now pricing out Greenville itself. The honest caveat is that the arrival of that wealth has put Travelers Rest in an awkward middle position, too expensive now for the working families it was built for, not quite polished enough yet for the buyers looking at Cliff's properties. That in-between phase tends to resolve in one direction. Number 4 is Pawleys Island. Weathered cottages stand on stilts between the creek and the ocean on Pawleys Island. Rope hammocks swing on the porches, and the town's actual official motto, adopted and meant, is arrogantly shabby. Families have handed these cottages down for generations and let the salt do the decorating. That shabby is now some of the priciest sand in South Carolina. Pawleys Island is in Georgetown County, population around 120 in the town limits, but with surrounding communities that push the area into the thousands. In a recent stretch, half the homes that sold on the island went for around $2 million, driven by 7-figure beach houses changing hands one after another. Next door, the gated Des Bordieu colony averages over $2 million per listing, with oceanfront estates asking $6.5 million. The buyers are coming out of Charlotte and Ohio, and they are buying cottages that survived Hurricane Hugo with cash. The wild card fact is that the old families joke that the motto needs an update: arrogantly shabby, $2 million. The combination genuinely unspoiled character plus oceanfront location plus a buyer pool from colder and more expensive states is almost impossible to find at any price anywhere on the East Coast. The honest caveat is that Pawleys Island carries meaningful flood and hurricane exposure. Coastal South Carolina gets storms, and the insurance math on a $2 million beachfront cottage is a real conversation. If you have made it this far, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who are trying to figure out where the money is going and what that means for them. Number 3 is Bluffton. Live oaks hang over Old Town past the Church of the Cross and the shrimp docks on the May River. In 2010, about 12,000 people lived in Bluffton. Today, it is over 40,000, one of the fastest growth stories in the American South. But the real engine hides behind a gate on 20,000 acres. Bluffton is in Beaufort County, and what happened to it is a case study in how fast a small place can be remade when the right infrastructure lands nearby. The Palmetto Bluff development, the largest single private tract on the East Coast, was reported as the biggest real estate transaction in South Carolina history when it sold. Last year alone, Palmetto Bluff closed $322 million in sales, with the average resale home approaching $3 million. Fewer than 5% of the private homes there ever come to market. The buyers are not flipping Bluffton, they are keeping it. Out on the highway, traffic backs up past the gate because the shrimping village at the center of all this still has mostly one road in. The infrastructure has not kept up with the demand, and the people who built the town's character, the shrimpers, the fishing families, the people who made the May River what it is, have largely been priced into Hardyville and Ridgeland. The wild card fact about Bluffton is that the Palmetto Bluff development is situated inside one of the most ecologically significant salt marsh systems on the East Coast. The property sellers had multiple conservation easements on portions of the land, and the new ownership has maintained them. The buyers are coming for the wilderness, and the wilderness is what they are being sold. The honest caveat is that Bluffton's traffic problem is real, acknowledged, and not yet solved. A community of 40,000 people with one primary access corridor is a quality of life issue that no amount of real estate value resolves. Number 2 is Kiawah Island. Before we get to number 1, let me say this clearly. The island at number 1 did something that should have failed. It cost itself money in the short term, made a decision that every economist said was wrong, and ended up as the most expensive market in the entire region because of it. But first, number 2. A private, gated barrier island 21 miles from Charleston, Kiawah Island, recorded $851 million in total real estate sales in 2025 alone, its third highest year on record. The single-family home median reached $3.25 million in mid-2025. In the first quarter of 2026, that number climbed to $3.77 million, a 20% jump in one quarter. Only about 2.1% of the island's roughly 4,800 properties come to market in any given period. Properties above $5 million are selling rapidly. The buyers are coming from New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and the broader Northeast, carrying incomes that make the South Carolina property tax calculation almost secondary. On a $3 million home, the effective property tax rate in South Carolina is roughly half of 1%. That same home in New Jersey would generate a tax bill roughly 4 times higher. Over 10 years, you are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings on taxes alone before you have had one conversation about the ocean. The wildcard fact about Kiawah is that it operates under a master plan development cap. There is a hard limit on how many units can ever be built on the island. That cap is why the prices are what they are. When you cannot add supply, every buyer who arrives is competing for a fixed pool of homes. The honest caveat is that Kiawah's flood and hurricane exposure is real and documented. Coastal South Carolina gets significant storms. The insurance math on a $3 million property near the ocean is a real number that belongs in every conversation about this market. Number 1 is Sullivan's Island, a lighthouse shaped like nothing else in America, a triangle essentially, built in 1962, stands over a town with one commercial street, one grocery store, no hotels, and no condos. In 2002, this island made a decision that every beach town in the country called financial suicide. It banned short-term rentals entirely, the only municipality in South Carolina to do it. No vacation rentals under 30 days, period. The island chose permanent neighbors over weekend rental checks, and then it won. The average home on Sullivan's Island is now worth over $4 million, making it the most expensive real estate market in the entire Charleston region. In a single recent year, 2 homes on Atlantic Avenue sold for more than $13 million each, in a town of fewer than 1,000 homes. The median sale price per square foot runs above $1,000, and the buyers coming in are not looking for a place to rent to tourists. They are looking for a place where the neighbor actually knows their name, and they are willing to pay $4 million for that. The island has an additional quirk that almost nobody talks about. Sullivan's Island Beach keeps growing, accreting at roughly 17 feet per year, and the new land belongs to the town under a protected easement with a maritime forest growing up on it. Some owners of so-called beachfront homes have gone to court for the right to see the ocean they paid millions for. Sullivan's Island was also where Edgar Allan Poe was stationed during his army service in the 1820s, and the island's landscape directly inspired the gold bug, one of the most widely read stories in American literature. The buyers coming in now are adding a different kind of chapter to that history. The lesson of Sullivan's Island is the lesson of this entire list. South Carolina has been attracting a specific kind of money. Money that is not looking for the usual amenities, is not interested in the tourism economy, and is not impressed by the billboard version of the state. It is looking for the real thing, whatever that means in any given town. A bike trail, a polo field, a horse farm with room to expand, a shrimping village with deep water docks, an island that told the vacation rental industry no and meant it. The 12 towns on this list are not the ones the billboards are selling. A few of them the billboards cannot find, but every one of them offers something the buyers from New York and New Jersey and California were willing to drive past the rest of the state to get a version of South Carolina that has not been packaged for someone else's visit yet. If this video helped you understand where the money is actually going in this state and why, subscribe to the channel. I drop videos like this every week covering the real South Carolina, the towns changing fast, the towns holding on, and the ones where the prices tell a story the listings never explain. Tell me in the comments which of these 12 you would actually choose to live in and which one hurt to watch change. I will see you in the next one.